I don't know if I'm going to be as good as Cliff. That hand was so steady. The whole presentation is incredible. Thank you. All right. I'm going to stand over here. Hi, guys. My name is Austin Ritter. I'm a three-time founder, angel and venture capitalist, and currently the general manager of AI for VC at Venture 5 Media, one of the hosts of the conference today. And over the past year, like many of you probably, I've become enamored by the unavoidable, all-consuming wave of opportunity that is the AI revolution. And I'm so excited to share my thoughts over a year of working in this space on the AI blueprint for building the ultimate deal sourcing engine. And so far, AI has done really two major things for VCs. And number one is it's given founders the tools they need to address societal level problems across the board. And in doing so, has really restocked the metaphorical startup pond in the wake of cloud, social, and mobile. But the other thing that AI has really done for VC is it's given founders the tools they need to raise a Series A, for example, and be set for years instead of months, and even potentially IPO with sub 10-person teams. So now, if that's the case, it's time for venture capitalists to adapt to a new and still yet rapidly changing environment. Specifically, it's time for VCs to adopt the same technologies they've put billions of dollars behind. So I talked to a VC a couple weeks ago who's actually in the audience, but they don't know it today. Well, somebody from their firm is in the audience today. Anyway, somewhere between 60 and 80% of their time, they said, was completely wasted on sourcing. And I'd like you to take a moment at some point in this presentation or after to think about, if you are a venture capitalist, what your percentage may be. And if this is in any range or any ballpark of the truth, then this is a fantastic opportunity for AI to do what it does best and automate away the inefficiencies that are found in our pursuit of finding world-class founders and startups. So I am, of course, talking about the area of VC that separates the good from the great, and that is deal sourcing. Deal sourcing really just means access to the right kinds of investment opportunities for your firm, and that's everything in our industry. So with that said, there should be something for everyone here, from smaller firms and emerging managers in the early stages of incorporating AI into their workflows, all the way to bigger firms with some serious firepower. So let's take a look at where it all started for me. Last year at Venture 5 Media, we were thinking about creating a new type of AI newsletter, and we didn't want to just do an AI roundup of news and happenings. We really wanted to focus on how-to style integrations and walkthroughs of how to integrate AI into the venture capital fund process. We wanted to create tutorials that were steps 1 through 5 on how you can actually do this at your firm. And what we found is a lot of VCs were holding their secrets close to their chest. There wasn't much published on this topic, and there was far fewer on actually how to do this type of stuff. And so our newsletter was a big hit. And unbeknownst to us at the time, what we didn't realize is that our work over the course of the last year would really evolve to resemble a sort of microcosm of the maturity model for the AI integration into VC. And the first step that you see here on the screen is really nothing special. It is nothing more than low and no code experimentation with tools like ChatGPT. And maybe I'll take a break so you guys can see over here. The first step here is nothing special. And in fact, if there's one thing that I would love for you to take away from my presentation here today, it's that none of the work that we're doing is particularly special. And there are very few barriers to entry besides the willingness to learn and adapt. But that doesn't mean that the work isn't powerful. AI has the ability to handle data sets that are beyond traditional databases, data sets like Crunchbase and PitchBook. It can handle alternative sources such as newsletters, social media, market research reports, regulatory filings, web pages, even YouTube videos like Cliff mentioned, satellite imagery, and much, much more, all in this pursuit of uncovering this hidden data that's all around us on the internet, but we can't quite access or we haven't been able to up to this point. And I think over time, AI's ability to integrate these diverse data sets together is only going to become more powerful. It's going to broaden our analytical landscape and allow us to create insights into market opportunities that we have never had access to in the past. Here are a few of my favorite newsletters or research that we've done over the past year. The first one is turning a market map into a spreadsheet. And so I think when people create market maps and publish them, I think frequently it benefits the designer much more than the end user or reader. After all, what are you really supposed to do besides just look at a pretty graphic, right? And so what we figured out that you can do is you can actually download this published market map you find online, and you can utilize DALL-E's OCR within the ChatGPT framework to identify categorized startups. And especially with the new model of GPT-4o, it does an incredible job of using that computer vision to build you a CSV file with all of the categorized startups perfectly. And from there, what you can do is you can enrich this mini database that you've created. I'll tell you how to do that in a bit. The second one, extremely similar to what Cliff was alluding to. We figured out that this is a really, really interesting data source, and I'm talking about pitch days or demo days and pitch competitions. And that's because when you listen to this kind of event, it gives you an opportunity to access data that is really nowhere else on the internet. Founders are providing information straight from their pitch book on the state of their MVP or financial metrics that's really difficult to get in a lot of public sources. So if we can harness this source and make it easy for ourselves to, in fact, be everywhere at once, then we could really build something powerful to incorporate into our deal sourcing engine. All you have to do is take one of the transcription tools that Cliff mentioned, for example, Otter or Fireflies, and you can build a text file in seconds with just a meeting URL or a file upload. And then from there, what we can do is we can upload that to ChatGPT. It'll understand the entire context of that hour-long discussion in seconds. And we can ask it all sorts of information about the presenter names, the companies, quotes, Q&As from the judges, and much, much more. That is really, really interesting. And lastly, I want you to pay attention a little bit more to this one because we will have a demo of this one in action in just a little bit. But to give you an overview, I think this is an extremely underutilized data source, and that is actually the vc.com/portfolio pages themselves. Especially for market research, what better source to go to than the actual venture capital funds that are, constantly investing into these industries. And so it's a really unique look into, what types of startups are getting funded, what categories are hot right now and those types of market research trends, right? And so if we just upload a link from a static web page into ChatGPT, we can get access to all of these startups in CSV format. We can get access, if they have a website link, to descriptions of the startup and much more that will allow us to analyze that file. And it may even serve as potentially some sourcing data for later stage investors. If that's something that you're interested in. But we have 37 more of these available at our website. We made it super confusing for you guys. It's ai4vc.com/archives. So if you're interested, I would highly recommend checking that out. You can also subscribe to AI for VC if you just chop off that back half. And lastly, in this section, I wanted to give you a few kind of learnings from a year of AI research that I've been doing. And the first one is the simpler the better. We found that when we were taking 5-6 hours to flesh out these really difficult concepts and we couldn't quite see the light at the end of the tunnel, that frequently there may not be a lot there. And some of our most powerful research was actually created in the shortest amount of time, and was maybe only 3 steps. And so I think going for simpler the better. I know, when we think of AI, it's super complex, it's, multi-process engines, but I would advocate strongly for simple but impactful deliverables. The second learning is definitely organic research for the win. I would say about 99% of the research that I did over the course of the year wasn't coming from online sources. It wasn't coming from ChatGPT, that's for sure. Amazing as those tools are for so many things, they're horrible for brainstorming use cases for AI integration into VC. And like I said, a lot of people have been holding their secrets close to their chest, which is fine. A lot of things just haven't been published on the internet. And so what I found is the most impactful research and tools that I was able to build came from my own experiences in the startup and venture capital ecosystem. And I would say, you know your firm better than anyone. And so what's going to work for you is something that you have to look introspectively for. So identifying the inefficiencies where in your firm where you think that you can do a little bit better is really going to lead to big successes. And I think everything that's out there that's published should really just serve as inspiration for you to take back to your firm. And lastly, if you're an emerging manager, you do not have to hire an entire AI team to overhaul your operations. You can actually get started today. A few ways that you can do so are, of course, like I said already, subscribing to AI for VC. I think you can utilize automation software like Zapier that's increasingly adding AI into their core features. I think investing in an AI-powered startup database like Harmonic is an incredible way to get started as well. They're not paying me to say that, but I use the tool every single day. And lastly, you can just start experimenting with prompt engineering, with trial and error in ChatGPT and similar tools like Claude like Cliff was talking about, is another excellent way to get started. In fact, that's where we started about a year ago. And so now we're going to start talking about how we can take these 4, 5, 6-step newsletters and turn them into a single one. And the way we're going to be able to do that is with agentic frameworks. And so for that, I am going to introduce Dave Brewster, who can join me up here. Quickly, this is the second step in our maturity model here. We're going from, okay, we've done some experimentation. We have an idea of what we can use AI for within our fund. We've identified the inefficiencies. Okay, now it's time to take it to the next step. And we can do that with an agentic framework. So without further ado, Dave is a 7-time entrepreneur. His 7th startup that he's co-founded, Eidolon AI, and he's going to tell us a little bit more.
Thanks, Austin. As he mentioned, we're starting an open source agentic framework. And it's really just a toolkit that lets people build AI applications, Gen AI applications, a lot easier. The first part of starting a good company, though, is having the right team. And Ravi, Luke, and myself are starting a company called August Data, who are the creators of the Eidolon open source project. The second part of it is we wanted to create a really great product. And I think at this maturity model, this maturity part of Gen AI, it's really important. Open source is very important to us. And kind of the last leg of that we're at is thank you, is to make sure that we get the word out. So we do a lot of community events, a lot of meetups, a lot of other things like that that we're part of and or have started. So if you eidolonai.com and go to the events section, there's plenty of events there. Let me tell you a little bit about Eidolon before we get into the demo real quick. So, Eidolon is really, it's an agentic framework, but it's really the easiest way to build enterprise-ready applications on Gen AI. It makes it very easy for developers to have high productivity building those. The framework itself allows builders to focus on the business logic as opposed to all the Gen AI stuff that everybody has to do. And we're enterprise people. We build lots of enterprise products, the three of us. So trust is an extremely important part of the platform that we're building. So now let's get into the demo itself. So what we've built is a sourcing agent, and we haven't spent a ton of time on it, but it's quite powerful. It allows you to find companies they want to match, either directly through search or going scraping a portfolio page of a VC, and then research each one of those companies very completely, and then export those to a database, as Austin will mention later, or to CSV or whatever you want. First step, like I mentioned, is to find the companies, right? So the way I set this simple application up is you chat with GPT, and there's a couple tools available to you. You can choose what you want. You want to use Claude, you want to use GPT, you want to use Mistral. It's all available. It's all there for you. And you can use that to find the companies that you're interested in. Once you find those companies, you select the ones you want and you start researching them. And then when it does research, it goes out and scrapes the web to find information about it, and then validates a lot of that using Harmonic API on the back end, and to make sure that the information is correct, and to fill in lots of missing gaps of early stage companies like what I searched here that you wouldn't find, right? Harmonic's great at early stage companies. It's great at all companies, but it shines at early stage companies, right? So this is what I've done. And doing this, I could get anything I wanted, so here's Llama Index. All of this was very simple, not a lot of work. Check the checkbox, come in, you get this, right? Then once you're done, you can choose the ones you want and export them. So this wasn't designed as a product. We're not competing with anyone. This is a very simple group of agents, many agents that I created to do this. But I did it all in less than a day with our framework. And that's the power of when we start bringing, when we mature, I think as Cliff said, right, the tools are not mature. When we start maturing, we're going to start seeing enterprise quality products, platforms, et cetera, come into this process. So we hope Eidolon is one of those many that do that. And we built a pretty powerful team in the open source community now to pull that off. So, the last thing I want to mention, like the platform, the whole point is enterprise. So it has to be trusted, right? It has to have the right kind of security. So with that, I'll turn it back to Austin here to show you the next step.
Thank you, Dave. All right, now it's time to put it all together. We're at the third stage in our maturity model. We've written some newsletters, we've done some research, and built the first steps of a deal sourcing engine. We've automated those processes from 4, 5 to 6 into one step with the agents, and now we're at step 3 where we're really putting it all together. This step is all about action. It's all about bringing AI to the forefront of your team's deal sourcing operations. And for the serious firms, it's now time to piece together data sets, it's time to build models, and it's time to call APIs. And so I have a simple white paper on the StackRank startup database idea. Before I introduce that to you, I'm talking about my key goal. And the key goal for me was I wanted to build an efficient and streamlined product that would prioritize the deals that were most likely to be fruitful for me. The way to do that is with what I call a StackRank startup database. I'm not sure that this term has been coined. Cliff referred to it as a startup ranking device. So if there's anybody from the coining commission, feel free to give me some credit. But a StackRank startup database essentially is just a dynamic tool that serves as a filtering UI for us. And so we'll have our startups down the row, we'll have all of our investment criteria across the top, and the idea is that we've built a dynamic system that is taking in all of this data, and it's able to understand our needs as a firm and show us the opportunities that we're most likely to invest in so that our deal sourcing teams can spend as little manual time as possible on the first steps of the deal sourcing processes. So I'm going to go over just a very brief framework for thinking about what we need to actually make this happen for your firm. And the first step here is turning your investment thesis into a series of column headings. What that means essentially is we need to write down everything that we care about. So if we're a fintech VC that invests at seed and Series A, we need to write that down. If we invest in companies that have more than 20,000 in revenue, but not more than $1 million, we need to make a note of this. And going down the line from everything that's a must-have and a requirement for us, all the way to things that are nice to haves as we build out our AI capabilities. And so now we have everything that we care about. We need to find a way to take all of this information that's filtered in from our AI deal sourcing engine that we've built in step 2 with the AI agents. And we need to categorize this. We need to find a way to make sure that we have all of the startups down the rows and all of the investment criteria across the columns. And everything is perfectly filtered for that startup into the correct category. And so we're just starting to think about this framework for how we might be able to do that. The third step is the evaluation, right? So if the AI can take a look at a cell and decide that it matches our firm's investment criteria, then we want that to turn green, or we want it to be tallied up in some way. If it's a healthcare opportunity and we are a fintech VC, obviously we want that cell to turn red. We want it to get 0 points for that, and it's going to be filtered lower in our engine. And so on the right, we can think of, we can weight this. We can say that, for example, the stage or the industry is much more important than the number of employees that a firm may have, if that makes sense, right? If we invest in Series Seed and Series A, it's going to be a non-starter if the company is Series B or C, right? But it may not be as big a deal to us if the company has more employees than is ideal. And so we can start to think about some basic criteria weighting, some algorithms that we can think about to make this filtering UI, this database, as efficient and productive as possible for our firm. The last step is just the actual ranking. So the best investment prospects are going to be at the top, and startups are going to be continuously shuffling up and down as new information is added from our deal sourcing engine. And so now, what does that actually look like in practice? I hope I've given you just a little bit more to think about in terms of, okay, if I want to build this tool for my firm, what are the steps that I need? But in practice, I've created this kind of 4-step framework for understanding how the data is actually flowing. And so in the first step here, we have our agents, but you can think of this as much more than that. You can think of that as your entire deal sourcing engine. So every bit of information that your firm knows about every startup that's out there. And we need to take that and put it into a data lake, or a centralized knowledge container, as I'm calling it. And really, this is just a collection area. It's an unstructured database. It's, okay, we have a deal sourcing engine that we've built in the first half of this presentation. Now we need a landing spot for all of that. And there might be a table over here, there might be a table over here, one might be green, one might be purple, there might be a random sentence over here, right? And that's what an unstructured database is. We can think of an industry standard tool would be something like Pinecone for this type of thing, but it's nothing insane here. We just have every bit of information that we know about every startup. And now, from going to the second to the third step, we need to turn this unstructured database into something that we can use to effectively filter and stack rank. And the way we can do that is with what I'm calling a centralized knowledge repository. This is essentially just a SQL or a relational database where we can do schema mapping to say that, okay, we're now in a particular cell in our centralized knowledge repository, and we want to figure out what a particular startup's business model is. We can look back using AI tools into the centralized knowledge container, or CKC, to say, hey, do you have any information on any of your tables about this company to say what their business model may be? And if there is a sentence that says we sell enterprise software, well then great. We can transform that into the relational database where we say B2B. And so now we have this perfectly ranked and ordered and categorized list of startups with all of the information that we have available from our deal sourcing engine, with all of this incredible data that we're getting from alternative and unstructured sources that nobody else has. We can build a stack rank database. And I'm going to show you how you can do that in about an hour, or at least get a fantastic start towards building one if your firm doesn't have anything like this. So the first step starts with ChatGPT, of course. And I was pretty close to finishing out my computer science minor, but didn't ultimately at Duke. But still, I was able to write a program that allowed me to create this database product. The way I did it was I took the 4 steps that I outlined for you. Step 1, creating the list. Step 1, adding the data. Step 3, the evaluation. And step 4, the actual ranking. I just took those exact words from my presentation and said, hey, ChatGPT, I want to build a StackRank startup database that does these 4 things. And this is the first screenshot that I ever got. Ultimately, working through some bugs and kind of just being a monkey pressing buttons with ChatGPT as my leader, I was able to actually turn this into this framework that you see here. And so ChatGPT told me I needed to download PyCharm as an IDE for Python development projects and Python scripts. So I followed that instruction. It told me I needed to download Streamlit, which was just a hosting environment. And it's really not important because you guys can do this as well, and you can just ask ChatGPT and follow its steps to lead to a very similar outcome here. But what we're looking at is a StackRank startup database, kind of in purest, most efficient form here. And obviously, we don't have a ton of data, but it's a fantastic start where we can select the industries that we're interested in. We can say, I only invest in seed and Series A companies, so we can get rid of Series B. The ARR range, employee count, and locations, and you can add as much criteria as you want to yours. We can weight that criteria. We can add in a CSV of 1,000 companies. And this tool that I built in an hour using ChatGPT and is 200 lines of code is now able to rank 1,000 different startups based on the user-defined criteria that I've entered just in this random local hosting environment. And so it's extremely easy to build these types of tools. The following step is going to be these custom-built AI platforms that are going to be as much a part of our VC firms as we are. And I think this is a process that you really never stop innovating on. You can build the StackRank startup database. You can build similar tools that are making your fund more efficient. But they can always be better, and they can always be more optimized for your firm. And you're going to decide over time that the data you're pulling in is, you might need to find different data points, or you might be interested in weighting things slightly differently. And I think we're never going to stop evolving. But these proprietary AI models that we're going to develop that are going to be firm specific is really where we're going in this industry. But for now, we can do a lot with what we have. And so, again, if there's anything I'd love for you to take away from this, it's that you can do this. There is a very, very, the learning curve isn't very steep, and it's very easy to adapt and learn these technologies. You can get started today. And if you have any questions about doing so, about building your deal sourcing engine, I am super available. You can find me at email or LinkedIn. So thank you guys so much. Sure. Okay. Any questions for me about this process?
Thanks. How do you test this? A lot of times when we deploy machine learning models into production, we do A/B tests or some other tests to validate the results. So do you test this against traditional human picking startups?
Right. So far, there's actually no AI in the StackRank startup database yet. It's more on the side of the second and third steps where we're really trying to organize the data into that centralized knowledge repository, which is really just, an organized, it's one big table, right? That's where the AI so far we've implemented. As far as the StackRank database, right now, it's just 200 lines of code. And so the beauty is, I could give it to all of you today to use, and it's not going to cost me a dime. There's actually no AI on that part just yet, but the way that you could do it would be if you want to analyze criteria that isn't binary, right? That isn't like either fintech or it's not, right? If it's thinking about things like customer sentiment, things like that we can incorporate into our criteria, that would be the way that we do it. But we haven't done any testing yet. I mean, it works, like basically it is very rigid in the way that it works right now, so there's really no testing needed. But in the future, yeah, I would imagine. So, okay.
What unstructured data sources were you using?
Sure. So that would be all of the newsletters and like the sources that I was talking about at the beginning. So you can find sources from social media, or if it's YouTube, like the demo days and the pitch competitions, we can take those startups that we find from those sources and we can turn them into their own databases where we learn all about these companies, right? And so, for example, if we found a fintech market map and we found an area, say payments, that we were interested in, and we downloaded that market map, we went through the agent process, we could turn it all into one step, wrap it in a bow, right? And in the end, we're left with a CSV file of the companies that are in the fintech payments ecosystem. We can enrich it with Harmonic. We can do a lot more to get more information about that company, but ultimately it goes right in our deal sourcing engine in that unstructured database. And so the alternative or unstructured data sources are just coming from all over the internet. And it's all about really thinking about how we can utilize this new data. So, sorry, can you use the mic there?
Were you using email as a unstructured data source also, like the emails that come to you with a whole bunch of pitches and everything?
Sure, yeah, so it doesn't have to be just alternative or unstructured data sources, right? If we're getting deal flow that's coming in our email, like that's a part of our deal sourcing engine too. So it doesn't all have to be AI. And, we'll be ranking startups that, we didn't find through non-traditional means, right? It's everything that we know about every company. So yeah, like you can include, like automations processes like Zapier, right? If you're getting inbound deal flow, we could maybe even analyze the pitch decks that are coming in through those emails. And so there are a million ways that we could do it. But yeah, does that help answer some of your question? Great, okay. One more.
All right, final question here.
There'll be plenty of time. I'm happy to, discuss this in detail.
You mentioned ARR as a qualifier for an investment firm's thesis. How successful are you finding that information? We're talking about a lot of private companies here that keep that pretty close to the vest. In my experience, employee count and dollars raised is a pretty good way to triangulate, but I'm curious if you have any tips or tricks for finding ARR.
Yeah, so I'm not sure about that statistic specifically, but what I would say is when we're doing step one of creating that database, which is creating a list of everything that we care about, it's sort of a two-step process. And so we can say, okay, we care about these things, stage, industry, and ARR. But if our deal sourcing engine that we're pulling together from all of these data sources can't pull in that ARR information, it's not going to be worth it for us to put in our database. And so it's really a two-step process. We need to figure out both what we are interested in finding out about companies, what we care about that fits our investment criteria, and then also what we're able to get our hands on, right? And it's about finding that balance of things. For ARR, I mean, I think, it is something that is a little bit held closer to the chest in a lot of cases. You're going to need access to some sort of private, information, whether you can get that from a source like Harmonic if it's able to pull it in, or if you can analyze a pitch deck, you can throw all kinds of AI like ChatGPT on, on pitch decks and things like that to pull out information that's a little bit more private. So, okay. Well, thank you guys so much. Appreciate it.